ਅਕਾਲ ਮੂਰਤ ਅਜੂਨੀ ਸੈਭੰ ਗੁਰ ਪ੍ਰਸਾਦ ਜਪ ਆਦ ਸੱਚ ਜੁਗਾਦ ਸੱਚ ਹੈ ਭੀ ਸੱਚ ਨਾਨਕ ਹੋਸੀ ਭੀ ਸੱਚ ਆਦ ਸੱਚ ਜੁਗਾਦ ਸੱਚ ਹੈ ਭੀ ਸੱਚ ਨਾਨਕ ਹੋਸੀ ਭੀ ਸੱਚ ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕਾ ਖਾਲਸਾ ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕੀ ਫਤਿਹ. Okay, so Sangatji, up until this point, throughout the Ardaas, we've started off by looking at individuals. Okay, so whether it be Vaheguruji, whether it be all the different Guru Sahiban, the Chaliya Muktiya, Panj Pyare, Jar Sahibzade, we've looked at individuals, right? Great individuals. Now we get to the point in the Ardaas where we look at the qualities. So we've remembered those individuals, now we're remembering those who had certain qualities. And then after this, we're going to remember those that done certain things. But that will come on in a couple of weeks' time. So we're looking at certain qualities. And the first quality is something called hatiya. Now, I had no idea what this meant before this talk. Does anyone else have an idea? Anyone want to guess what that word even means, hatiya? Anyone? We say it. We hear it at least a couple of times a day. Hatiya? Anyone? Okay, it actually means steadfast. Someone who is stubborn, but stubborn in the right way. Okay, so steadfast meaning someone who just keeps on going no matter what. So we've got hatiya and japya. Now, japya and jinanam japya is obviously the same thing. It just means those who meditated, right? So now we're remembering those who meditated, but were steadfast in their meditation. Now, to meditate, to jap, is the first instruction our Guru gives us. The first instruction Guru Nanak Dev Ji gives us in Mool Mantar is jap, that we just said, is to meditate. So, just going off that, this Shabad here, Guru Prasad Jina Paya Naam. So Maharaj here is talking about those who do meditate, right? What happens to those people who meditate? Nanaka Aya So Pravan. That those people who came into this world and meditated, they are parvan, they are top dogs, right? They're certified, approved, right? They passed this test. So in a roundabout way, Maharaj is actually telling us the meaning of life, that we're here to meditate, right? So let's look at an example of someone who did exactly that. Now, a couple of weeks ago, Simran Kaur went through a Sikhi on the week when we were covering Guru Granth Sahib Ji Maharaj. And this Sikhi was of Guru Arjan Dev Ji, and how all the different Bhagats would actually come to visit Guru Arjan Dev Ji when Ard Granth Ji was being compiled, right? And one particular Bhagat we're going to focus on first is someone called Bhagat Beni Ji. Bhagat Beni Ji. Has anyone ever heard of Bhagat Beni Ji? Just a show of hands. Anyone ever heard? Couple, one there, one there. Okay, cool. So we've got loads to learn. So Bhagat Beni Ji. Now, they were born into a very poor family. And even when they were married, things didn't get much better, right? They had a wife, kids of their own, but they were still so poor that they didn't even know when their next meal was going to come, right? So they'd often see their kids go hungry. Now, for you parents in the room, I'm sure if your kid came up to you and said, I'm so hungry, we'd panic. We'd be like, oh my God, I've got to feed my child straight away, right? We can't bear to see our child go hungry. But that's the sort of life Bhagat Beni Ji went through, right? He had to see his family go hungry. So, not only that, but his wife was also arguing with him about their circumstances, right? They've got no money coming in. They don't know when their next meal is. She's arguing with him to say, look, we can't continue living like this. This is crazy, right? So Bhagat Beni Ji, it gets too much. Bhagat Beni Ji actually goes into depression, right? The pressure that he's under is too much. His circumstances are too painful to bear. So he thinks to himself, one day, I'm going to leave my house without anyone knowing, and I'm just going to kill myself. Bhagat Beni Ji, whose Bani is in Guru Granth Sahib Ji, wanted to kill themselves. They were on their way to commit suicide when they met a sadhu, just by chance, met a sadhu. And the sadhu shouts out and says, Beni Ji, where are you going? And Beniji thinks to himself, look, I haven't told anyone what I'm about to do, but let me just tell this sadhu. He tells the sadhu, look, I'm in so much pain. This is my circumstances. I've been living this life of pain for so long, I can't hack it anymore. Right? I can't take the pain. The only thing that's going to take away this pain is if I end this life. Then it's all going to stop. The sadhu starts laughing at Bhagat Beniji. They say, do you really think that by ending your own life, that your pain is going to stop? And Bhagat Beniji says, yeah, I won't be able to feel any of this anymore. And the sadhu says, no, you've got it all wrong. The sadhu says your soul is in so much pain that if you die feeling that pain, you're just going to carry that on into your next lives. Who knows how many lives you're going to have to go through? 8.4 million life cycles, maybe. Maybe you'll have to spend time in hell. The second point the sadhu made is that he said to Bhagat Beniji, the pain you're going through, as hard as it may be, it's your fault. You have done something in your previous lives. You've collected some sort of negative karma that you are now having to pay off. And if you don't pay this off, if you don't fight your way, if you don't hatya, if you don't stay steadfast through that pain, you're going to have to pay it off in another life anyway. So it doesn't make sense. This suicide doesn't make sense, he says to Bhagat Beniji. So Beniji says, look, what can I do then? What's going to make my pain go away? And the sadhu says, look, I can only tell you what works for me. And of course he says, meditate. Just keep calling Ram, 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 the name of God. Just keep meditating and just give it a go. So here there's a shabad that fits in nicely. Janan pita lok sudbanta koi na kiski tariya. That our family relations, our mothers, friends, fathers, no one actually supports each other. Right, so Bhagat Beniji was worried about who's going to feed his kids, his family, worried about tomorrow. But all of that is actually the responsibility of Sir Rijika Sambahir Thakur. It's actually God's responsibility. Gahe man pao kariya. So why are we afraid? Why should we feel fear when ultimately the person responsible for us is God? Right? We heard in the Gatha downstairs, Ji Janta Sab Kasam Ke, that the whole Jant belongs to Kasam, belongs to Vaheguru Ji. Kaun Qeemat Paave. So how can we know their worth when we all belong to them? It's a bit like, we've got our circles of care, right? So my circle of care goes around my friends, my family, those people that are close to me. But Vaheguruji's circle of care goes around the whole creation. They're worried about everyone. We think we've got problems, right? Vaheguruji is worried about everyone. So Bhagat Beniji does exactly that. He's about to commit suicide. He stops, he starts meditating. And he goes, you know what, I'm just going to give it a go. So he's got it's completely nishkam. He's got no desire at the end of it. He's completely drained. He's like, I'm just going to keep repeating Ram, 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 Ram. And that's exactly what he does. And when he comes back home after several hours, his wife actually asks him, they say, Beniji, where have you been? Bhagat Beniji says, I've been at the king's palace and I've been singing kirtan and doing katha at the king's palace. Right? And the wife's thinking, hold on a minute. If he's really doing that, if that's his job, then surely he would have brought back some money or food or something to show for what he's doing, right? He was gone for hours. But Bhagat Beniji didn't say anything. He just carried on meditating, leaving the house and meditating. Now one day, he meditated for so long that he lost track of time. He actually forgot to come back home. And in the meantime, Bhagat Beniji's wife hears a knock at the door. She opens the door and she sees the king himself standing in front of her. And she's shocked. She's like, oh my God, the king has come to my house. And the king's saying, is this the house of Beniji? And she says, yes. The king says, oh, that's excellent. I've got some things to pay him for. And she goes, I don't understand. Why are you here? Why are you paying him? He's been gone for days. Well, I don't know where he is. And the king says, he's been gone for days because he's working for me. He's working very hard for me. So I've come myself now. The king, I've come myself to pay Bhagat Beniji for all that he's doing for me. So the king gives loads of money, clothes, food, completely changes the whole circumstances in Benji's family. Now, Benji's meditating and he actually has darshan of Vaheguruji at this time. So after meeting, sorry, I forgot to mention, the king wasn't actually the king, it was Vaheguruji themselves. So after meeting Benji's wife, Vaheguruji meets Benji themselves whilst they're meditating. And he says, Benji, I'm so glad you carried on. I'm so glad you didn't give up. You were so steadfast in your meditation, you haven't stopped. I'm so glad that all of your problems now are my problems. Right? You're working for me, so now I'm going to look after you. I'm going to work for you. And now when we look at Bhagat Beni's Bani, this is really interesting now. There's not much of Bhagat Ji's Bani within Guru Granth Sahib Ji, but what there is, it's so hard hitting, and you can tell it really puts this Sikhi into perspective. So Bhagat Beni Ji says, Tate bikhe bai mata pavasa. They're speaking quite, like I say, straight. They're saying your intellect has dried up through corruption. Right? They say, Kaya Gamala Gumalana. That your body, this lotus flower body that was given to you, you didn't do what it was designed for. Because you gave into corruption. So what's this corruption Bhagat Beni Ji is talking about? They say, Avagatam Bana Chod. Avagatam Bana Chod. You forgot Bani. You forgot to meditate. That's what's corrupted you. Right? They say Mrita Mandal, Mrita Mandal. Mrit means death. This Mandal, this earth of death. Meaning that everyone's gonna die. Meaning that we're only here temporarily. So Bhagat Beni Ji has gone from someone who was about to commit suicide and wanted to end it all, who's now telling us that be careful, you're not here for very long. Don't allow yourself to be corrupted by forgetting to meditate. Then they finish off by saying, Mrita Mandal Tau Pacha Pachutana. That if you don't meditate, then you're going to pachutana, then you're going to regret in the end. Imagine, this is someone who was about to commit suicide. And then they finish off the Shabad, they say, Beni kahe sunoho re bhagataho. So this is Bhagat Beni literally telling us, this is my advice to you. Listen to me. Sunoho re bhagato. Right? Marana mukta kina pai. That dying in that way, by dying in a life of no meditation, you'll never get mukti. We'll never end this journey that we're on. We'll never complete. We'll never get to the finish line. Right? So here in the Sakhi is one thing, but then when you read Bhagat Beni's Bani, it really makes it so special. It makes these words come alive. Now the next Bhagat we're going to talk about is Bhagat Kabir Ji. Right? Bhagat Kabir Ji's life was very eventful. So what happened was Bhagat Ji was very different, let's say, to everyone else. Because he was born a Muslim, but he'd meditate saying Ram like a Hindu. But he'd also cuss the Hindus. He'll call them out on their falsehoods. He'll say, you guys have got this caste system in place. It doesn't exist. We're all one. So no one could place where Bhagat Kabir Ji sits in this hierarchy. So the top of this hierarchy are the Pandits for the Hindus and the Qazis for the Muslims. Now these guys were the top dogs. Only they could meditate. So anyone else below them would have to pay them money to say a prayer for them. Right? So they were very powerful. They were very rich. So here comes Bhagat Kabir Ji. He's born a Muslim, but he doesn't follow the Muslim practices. He says Ram like a Hindu, doesn't follow any of the Hindu practices. They can't place where he is. And the reason why he's such a threat is because he's starting to meditate. And he's a low caste person. This is a big thing. Someone of the lowest caste now meditating like someone of the highest caste. Now what happens is that other people of the low caste start following Bhagat Kabir Ji. They're saying, well, if he can meditate, then I can meditate. Like, what's actually stopping me? Why do I have to pay someone to meditate for me when I can just do it myself? So slowly, the Pandits and the Qazis at the top of that pyramid, they start losing power. They start losing money. So much so that they all go to complain to the king. Go all the way to the king to say, look, there's this guy called Kabir. He's a big problem. We're losing money. No one's respecting us anymore. Right? You need to sort him out. So the king calls Bhagat Kabir Ji to their court. And they say, look, is this true that you're neither Muslim, that you're neither Hindu? Like, which one are you? You've got to choose. Bhagat Kabir ji says, Kabir meri jaat ko sabke hasne har. So you guys laugh at me. That's the jaat that I am. That's the jaat. That's the social level of this caste system that I am. That I'm just someone that you guys laugh at, right? But all I do is balihari is a jaat ko jehe japiyo sir janhar. But I'm a sacrifice to that jaat. I'm a sacrifice to that caste level in the caste system of those people who just meditate, right? Meaning that you guys are so concerned about this hierarchy. Who's at the top, who can pray, who's at the bottom, who can't pray. But you're not even praying. You're not even meditating properly. You're just worried about power. You're just worried about your money. So Kabirji actually just carries on meditating in front of the king. The king gets really annoyed and he says, right, send this guy to be executed. So they take Bhagat Kabirji into the river Ganges, right, Ganga Nadi. They take him into the river Ganges, right into the middle where it's at this deepest, and they tie Bhagat Kabirji's chains, hands and feet in chains. So Bhagat Kabirji, just like Bhagat Beni ji, actually talk about their life in their Bani. So this is within Guru Granth Sahib ji. Bhagat Kabirji says, Ganga Gosayana Geher Gambir, that the river Ganges is very deep. That's where they took him. And what did they do? Janjir Banda Kara Khare Kabir. That they put me in shackles, hands and feet, shackled him. Then they added a weight to those shackles, right? So when they tipped him into the water, he would go down and sink. Kabirji says, Mana nadige, that my mind wasn't shaken, I just carried on. Remember Hatiya? Very steadfast. I just carried on meditating. I didn't care what was happening to me, right? So why should I be afraid? Similar to what we were saying before, why should we be afraid of who's providing for us when Vaheguruji themselves is providing for us? That's up to them, right? Charana kamala chitta rahiyo samay, that I remained absorbed, I remained doing my meditation, Kabirji says. So now what happens when they put him into the river? Ganga ki laher meri tutti janjeer, that the waves of the river Ganga, the waves of the river broke all his shackles. So they've tipped him in, he's sinking, and what happens? He comes all the way back up, but as he comes up, he's meditating. Mrigshala par baithe Kabir. Mrigshala. It was as if Kabirji was sat on a deerskin. You see those pictures of people sat on an animal skin? It was as if Kabirji was sat on a deerskin. That's how much, that's how steady they were on the water. So they've gone down, shackled, come up, no shackles anymore, and they're just meditating on the water. Completely unfazed, just carry on saying Ram, Ram, Ram. They're just completely absorbed in Vaheguruji. So now, the Pandits and the Ghazis, they say, look, drowning him didn't work, you're going to have to try again. So they go back to the king. Now the king's thinking, look, drowning this guy didn't work. This guy could come from our throne. He's something special, right? He's a threat. So now we've got to try something that definitely is going to work. So they tie Bhagat Kabirji to a pole, and they actually put 4 fires on each corner around Bhagat Kabirji. So much fire, it covered Kabirji from head to toe. For 3 hours, this fire just raged on. At the end of those 3 hours, as you can imagine, Bhagat Kabirji just sat there. Ram, Ram, Ram. Sat next to that pole. And they say, Ab mohi jalata Ram jalapaya. That I was on fire. My body was on fire. But now I've found that jal, which is Ram, God's name. Ram Udaka, Dana Jalata Pujaya, that this name, this God's name, cooled it all down, protected Bhagat Kabirji. So now they're getting really desperate. Now they actually get an elephant. So here Bhagat Kabirji says they tied my arms up, they bundled me up and threw me before an elephant. Not only that, but the elephant driver started striking the elephant in the head to make it really angry. Then what happened? But the elephant ran away. It was screaming. What was it screaming? Iya Murata ke ho balehare. That how can I crush Bhagat Kabir ji? He's the form of Vaheguru ji. This person has merged with Vaheguru. How can I crush it? Not even an angry elephant would crush Bhagat Kabir ji. Now the Ghazis and the Pandits, they even shout out to the driver. They say, if you can't get your elephant to crush this man to death, we'll cut you into little pieces. And even the driver speaks back. And he says, what has this saint done to you guys? What has he done to you guys that's so bad that you want to kill him, really? All he's doing is just meditating. He's just sat there going, Ram, Ram, Ram. Now the king comes and sees all of this, and he realizes that, look, I've tried drowning. I've tried fire. Not even an angry elephant worked, right? That I'm literally going against God themselves, right? A Bhagat, someone who follows Vaheguru ji. So he asked for forgiveness from Kabir ji. All right, Kabir ji didn't stop. They were so hard, they were so steadfast. The king asked for forgiveness from Kabir ji, and Kabir ji actually forgave the king, which says a lot. Okay, so we've spoken about different hardships that the Bhagats have faced, but what about like our hardships that we face, right? So I thought it'd be interesting for us to just go through some issues, certainly ones that I've gone through myself. And it'd be interesting just to hear from you guys as to what your advice might be for these issues, to tackle these issues. So the first one is, waking up at Amrit Vela is hard for me. Right? Amrit Vela, for anyone that doesn't know, is the early hours of the morning before sunrise. And Guruji tells us to wake up and meditate during those hours. So if someone came to you, Sangatji, and said, look, waking up at Amrit Vela is hard for me, what sort of advice could we give to that person? How could we help that person? Any ideas? How could we, Hanji, Harveer Singh?
I would say start off at 6 and then slowly work towards that 4.
Yeah?
So 6, 5:30, and 5. And then also there's this group chat.
Mm-hmm. Waheguru. Okay, that's a good idea. Okay, so Harveer Singh says you can start at like 6, maybe a little bit later, and then adjust the time as you go, and then eventually you'll be right in the early mornings before sunrise. Another thing was he's in a group with other Singhs who hold each other accountable for doing their Amrit Vela, which is a great use of Sangat, right? Hanji Baji at the back, did you have another one?
No, it's just reiterating the thing that I said a couple of months ago. Drink loads of water before you sleep.
Yeah, I remember that one. I actually remember that. Yes, drink loads of water before you sleep. If you drink loads of water during the night, you need to get up, go to the toilet. By the time you're in the bathroom, the hard part's done. You're out of your warm bed, you're in the bathroom, you might as well just have a quick shower. You do your part. Right? Hard part's done, that's a good one. Anyone else before we move on to the next one? Okay, so that's Amrit Vela. What about if someone says, I don't have time to meditate? And one of my personal favourites, I don't have time. I'm too busy. What are we going to say to that person? How can we help that person? Hanji Baji.
You actually essentially meditate on everything, not just now. So everything in life you meditate on.
Right.
Right.
That's a wicked answer. So Baji says that anything that we focus on is a type of meditation. So in other words, Baji, I guess what you're saying is if we don't meditate, it's because it's not a priority for us, right? So if it's not a priority, we're not going to focus on it. We only focus on what's a priority in life. Right? So one of the reasons that we may not meditate is because maybe it's just not a priority for us. Anything else? How else can we find time to meditate? Seva Singh, any ideas? How else? No? Okay. Okay, Yanji, how do you say?
You can ask that person how much time to spend on your phone, scrolling, procrastinating.
Wicked. Hanji, so look at where else you're spending your attention, right? I've got an iPhone, and every Monday, I hate these messages, it comes at every Monday, 9 o'clock, it says your screen time for last week was up by X amount, and the screen time, I'm ashamed to even say what the hours are, but it's absolutely disgusting. Like, I can't believe I look at my phone that much, but that's a good one, definitely. Okay, I don't have time to meditate. All right, last one then. I pray, and I go to the Gurdwara, but I don't feel anything. So I go to the Gurdwara, someone might be doing seva, someone might do their Nitanam, someone might be meditating, but they just don't feel anything. What could we say to that person? How can we help that person remain hatiya, remain steadfast? Any ideas? Anyone? Hanji Baji.
You're saying, I'm going to go to the Buddha and I'm going to meditate. So when you meditate, self-meditation.
Waheguru. Okay, so Baji says, by even saying, I do this, I pray and I go to the Gurdwara, you've already missed a trick because you're already stuck at the I. Is that what you're saying, Baji? Am I understand that correctly? Yeah, that's a great point. You're already stuck in the I. When actually we should be focusing on you. Vaheguru, you. Here, when someone says that, they're still stuck in the I. Well, that's a really good answer. Anyone else before we move on? Any others? Hanji. Clear mind? Yeah, go to the Guru Gar with a clear mind. Go to the Guru Gar routinely. Yeah? So, routinely, like, just keep going, keep at it. You might feel something one day, you might not feel something the next day, but that doesn't mean you don't go, right? It's slowly. The way I see it is that someone like me, we're so dirty, we're full of so much ego, that dirt is going to take a long time to actually wash away, right? And it's also staying in Sangat. Most people I speak to, where their Sikhi takes a nosedive, it's because they come out of Sangat. They lose that sort of support network. Okay. So Guru Nanak Dev Ji was actually asked, what's the quickest way to Vaheguruji? And Guru Nanak Dev Ji says that there's different types of tapaya you can do, different types of penance. Penance meaning to renounce sensory pleasures, right? There's loads of different types. So one of them being reciting Gurbani and singing Kirtan. That's a type of penance, right? You're focusing on God, your focus isn't elsewhere. So you're giving up something else to focus on what you want to. Even singing Kirtan is a form of tapaya. Fighting your mind, watching where your thoughts go, right? Controlling your senses. What are we looking at? What are we listening to? Are we listening to slander? Right? Music could be anything, could be all of these things. What are we letting into our bodies? Next one then is putting your body through hardships. And I've got some examples now we'll go into quickly. So this is Sant Baba Nand Singh Ji, a great Mahapurush, a great being of the early 1900s. And Baba Nand Singh Ji, when they were very young, they wanted to fight against their own sleep. Right? Even at a young age of about 6 or 7, they didn't want to sleep, imagine. They didn't want to sleep at that age. Why? Because they wanted to continue focusing on Vaheguruji. So much that they didn't want to even sleep. Because when they slept, they'd lose consciousness of what they were doing. So one day, their brother wakes up in the middle of the night and he realizes that his younger brother isn't there. And they're like, where's Nand Singh, right? So they get this massive search party together and they go looking for him. They find Baba Nand Singh Ji on the edge of a kuh. A kuh is like a really deep well, right? A water well. Baba Nand Singh Ji sat on the edge of this well and he's just meditating, very still on the edge of this well. When they bring him round, they ask him, why are you sat on the edge of this well? Baba Nand Singh Ji, remember, at a very young age, they're already thinking like this. They're saying that if I forget Vaheguruji and I fall asleep and I stop my meditation, I might as well fall in. I might as well die. I might as well not even be alive. That's how serious Baba Nand Singh Ji took their meditation, right? That they were willing to give up their sleep. They were willing to even sit next to extreme danger just to meditate. Now the family said to them that, look, they hadn't done Santya of Sohila Sahib at this time. So they said, look, if you do a Mool Mantar before you go to sleep with full focus on Guru Granth Sahib Ji, that throughout your whole evening of sleep, you'll remain focused on your Guru. And that's what Baba Nand Singh Ji started doing after that. Another quick example of later on in Babaji's life, they done an Ardaas to Guru Nanak Dev Ji. And they said, Maharaj, we want your darshan. We want to see you. We want to see your form, Guru Nanak Dev Ji. I want to see what you look like. And they said, we aren't going to sleep, we're not going to eat, and we're not going to drink anything until you give us your darshan. Right? That's the level of commitment that Babaji had. Babaji went 6 days. No food, no water, just meditating for 6 days. Now, obviously, these people are of a very high spiritual level that they could even do this in the first place, right? 6 days pass and Guru Nanak Dev Ji comes in their own form. And they say to Baba Nand Singh Ji, okay, I'm here now. What do you want? Gosh Mangala, what do you want from me? Baba Nand Singh Ji, they say, I've seen you now, had your darshan, that's all I want. I don't want anything else. Guru Nanak Dev Ji says again, no. What do you want? Baba Nand Singh Ji says, Raj na chao, mukta na chao. Manoprita charana kamalare. That I don't want to be a king, I don't want a Raj, I don't even want mukti, I don't even want to be liberated. All I want is to be in love with your feet. And a third time now, Guru Nanak Dev Ji says, what do you want? Now when a Bhagat or when anyone asks you something for the third time, that's serious, right? You gotta really fix up then when it's the third time. Guru Nanak Dev Ji says, what do you want? And Baba Nand Singh Ji says, look, I don't know how to ask for anything, but just make me yours. Make me you, Guru Nanak Dev Ji. Guru Nanak Dev Ji start laughing. They're so impressed. They say, look at that. You say you don't know how to ask for anything, yet you've just asked for the biggest thing in the world. You see, this path of meditation, we're actually trying to merge with our Guru. Right? We're using Bani to merge with our Guru, to become one with Guru Nanak Dev Ji. So Guru Nanak Dev Ji was so pleased with Baba Nand Singh Ji that they actually blessed them with that, to merge with them. Now, another example of tap, of penance, is Sant Baba Ishar Singh Ji. Now, this is a day in the life of Sant Baba Ishar Singh Ji at one point in their life. This was their daily routine, right? So, at midnight, they'd wake up and do Ishnan. Midnight, every day. They'd stand in ice cold water in a river and then they'd meditate. Right? This is from midnight onwards. Then they'd go to the Gurdwara, they'd sing Kirtan, and then they'd go back to the river to meditate. They wouldn't eat until midday. And even when they ate, it'd be very simple food. It wouldn't be full of spices that we have now, because they were beyond the senses of the tongue. That you could put anything in front of them, they wouldn't be swayed from their meditation. So earlier how we were saying controlling your senses is a form of tap, this is exactly what Sant Baba Ishar Singh Ji was doing. Right? They weren't swayed by the taste of food, they'd only eat enough to keep their body going. And then they'd have Ishnan again, then go back to the river to meditate. Now for 9 years, Sant Baba Ishar Singh Ji didn't even lay down. They didn't even put their back down, horizontal. I think that's right. Yeah, horizontal. They didn't put their back down for 9 years. Even Sevadars used to go into their room and change their bedding every day. Even they didn't even realize that Sant Baba Ishar Singh Ji isn't even going to sleep. When they slept, they'd sleep sitting down and they'd just lean forward a bit. And even then, it would only be a little bit of sleep. Just enough what their body needed, then they'd just go back to being immersed in their meditation. All right, so when we talk about Hattiya, this is the sort of level we're talking about. They're so steadfast. So, these Gurumukhs, whether it be Bhagat Beni Ji, Bhagat Kabir Ji, Sant Baba Ishar Singh Ji, Sant Baba Nand Singh Ji, they faced so many hardships, right? Whether it be fire, whether it be water, starvation, depression, they faced all of these things, but they kept going, right? They kept meditating, and it was because it was all worth it to them. What they were going through, that pain that they put themselves through, was all worth it because they met Vaheguruji through that. Right? They were able to do that because they met Vaheguruji. Now they are walking the same path as you and me. Right? This path of Sikhi is the same path that Sant Baba Ishar Singh Ji walked. It's the same thing. We're walking the same path, you and me. Right? So when we go through hardships in our life, whatever it may be, right? Whether it be depression in even our lives, whether it be, I don't know, I'm not saying anyone's going to get crushed by an elephant. I'm not saying that anyone needs to drown or starve themselves, but you know what it is when we're fighting our sleep, for example, when we're fighting our busy diaries, trying to make time, right? All we've got to ask ourselves is, to these people, it was all worth it. So for us, is it worth it? Is meditating worth just adjusting our sleep schedule just a little bit? Is meditating and meeting Vaheguruji worth just rearranging our diaries? Is it worth it? And that question, Satsangaji, Maharaj Kirpa Karan, is what will lead us to make the right choice. So I'll end it there. Has anyone got any questions before we wrap up? Any questions? Okay, Ji. We'll finish off there. Please forgive me for all the mistakes I've made, and I will see you guys soon. Take care. Vaheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Vaheguru Ji Ki Fateh.